Welcome back to Benchmark. We now have excerpts of an exclusive interview with Deshamanya Professor M.T.A. Furkan, the chairman of the Confifi Group of Companies. In November, the government presented its budget proposals for 2012 in Parliament and also announced plans to take over underperforming businesses and or assets. Against this backdrop, we asked Professor Furkan about how he views post-war Sri Lanka's progress, especially on infrastructure development and national reconciliation. Here's Professor Furkan. Welcome to Benchmark, Professor Furkan. Good to have you on the show. Well, the country has just seen another budget, the fiscal budget for 2012. What are your views on the budget?
Well, I think the budget is a continuity exercise in that in the last 2 years, the President has been working on a certain course of action. So at least there is therefore an element of consistency in what has been offered. And I can see that it's oriented towards encouraging investment in the country, particularly from the SME sector. So there's an emphasis on those two things. Namely, one is they want more and more investment to be made in the country, and they also want to encourage the SME sector because that they want to make it the backbone, like for example in Japan, of the economy. So I think therefore there is definitely something to look forward to, in that there is nothing very big drama about it. If you take off the political flavored items in there, you will find that by and large it's a very sensible budget. It's oriented towards the right direction.
So, in your mind, what are the pros and the cons, and are you satisfied that the government will, the targets that the government has laid out, are they achievable, are they realistic?
I think they are realistic. There is no doubt about that. Actually, what they have set about is very meaningful, very constructive, and they are focused. They know where they want to go. What is unfortunately happening is that occasionally you get these wrong signals being given, and then the market is still not picking up as a result of that. So right now you begin to you see that there's a lull. There's a lull in investments, there's a lull in the stock market, there's a lull in employment. So in all these areas, there's a little bit of quietness because the market is not altogether confident. That is what is the situation now.
So, Professor, now do you think the downward spiral we have been seeing in the Colombo BOS would be symptomatic of the bill being introduced?
It's the other way around. I would say that it will further exacerbate the tragedy that's going on in the BOS at the moment, because what is happening in the stock market, there are several reasons why the stock market is in the doldrums, as it is in a sort of a bearish approach at the moment. It has been consistent like this for a few months, and there are a number of reasons why that is happening. To my mind, the main thing and the problem is illiquidity in the market, because some of the main players like the foreigners have pulled out. And then you ask the reason why. There are international reasons why some of them have pulled out, because there's international recession or a threat of a recession going on. So a lot of people are very careful because they are investing somebody else's money, and therefore they are looking for other markets and so on. We have had this human rights question hanging over us, with the United Nations trying to put in a committee of inquiry and so on. We haven't got over that, so that's also a little bit of a signal that is affecting the market conditions. And then when we bring in other things, even this bill that we brought in, you see, will go along to disturb the minds of the people, because we have to just show that there is stability in the country. That is the most important thing, so that we can build up confidence amongst the minds of the overseas investors and the local investors. Look, the country is okay, we are settled down, we are in a market economy framework, we are going to go ahead. But moment you bring in the foreign asset, the assets acquisition bill, then the market economy concept is disturbed. Now the question raised is this government going to go and take some more companies? So when that kind of disturbing thoughts come in, then there will be a lull. And each time this happens, it takes months to recover. And we've been in this syndrome for the last, I think, the whole of 2011 so far, we have not got off the ground.
On the other side, isn't the government adding yet more white elephants into its rather large and expansive white elephant portfolio?
You're absolutely right. You know, the reason why we realize that the state-controlled or state-run organizations are not a success is because of the management. It's not because of the managers who are managing or the CEOs who are managing who were appointed by the government, but the system meant that there was room for interference by individual ministers, by the whole government. So, I think Sri Lanka is blessed with talent. We have talented people who could take over any establishment. If one of these establishments change hands tomorrow from the private sector to the public sector, that does not mean that we cannot run it. We can run any organization, even with the state control, but we must have the assurance that there is no interference. Why do private sector companies succeed where the public sector has failed? Because in the two models, the very conspicuous situation is that there is interference. There are people like in the responsible ministers or MPs and so on, who would want to get their own people into the place. They would want to get favors of in prices. You know, they don't seem to realize that you cannot allow that kind of conflict of interest to arise. You must allow a commercial enterprise to run on a public accountability basis, and that is where the real trauma is. We haven't really understood that.
So just one more question on this controversial bill. Is the business community and the chambers, for instance, have they voiced their opposition? Are they doing, or have they done enough to, given the implications, the impact that this bill is having on the investment milieu, for instance?
I think they have. You must realize, you see, I have often said this, the business people in the business sector, they didn't come in to determine government policy. That is the government's prerogative. The whole orientation is they must make sure that these organizations are run properly with CSR, with corporate responsibility, good governance and so on, and at the end of the day they have a bottom line that can justify to the stakeholders. That is their primary objective. But therefore they are very, what shall I say, careful whenever they say something, because they don't want to upset the people. Now, I have noticed in recent times, whenever the chambers of commerce and others get together, even in forum and other places, you want to try and just point out, look, there are certain inconsistencies, there are certain ways we could do this better and so on. Immediately the feeling is taken, now these chaps are trying to tell us what to do, right? They are interfering. You know, the government immediately puts up the shutter. So therefore the private sector is a little bit more discreet in whatever they do.
Time now for a commercial break. On the other side, we have more excerpts of our exclusive interview with Deshamanya Professor M.T.A. Furkan. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with Benchmark. We now continue with our exclusive interview with the chairman of the Confifi Group of Companies, Deshamanya Professor M.T.A. Furkan. So how, in your view, is post-war Sri Lanka progressing, especially in the areas of infrastructure development, national reconciliation and political stability in the north and east?
Remarkable achievements have been made without any doubt insofar as the infrastructure is concerned. I think there has been a lot of foreign aid. Some of these programs were put in even before the end of the war, you remember, and a lot of infrastructure has been built. For example, even the Southern Highway has been there for more than 10 years, you know, we've been building that. Similarly, even the Kattayaka Road and a lot of the northern road rehabilitation programs, which are funded by overseas countries and so on, have all been very successful. They have built a lot of bridges. If you go to the eastern province, they are trying to connect Trincomalee to Argam Bay without going over a ferry and that kind of thing. So I must say, we have achieved. There's a lot more to be done. I dare say there's a lot more to be done. Even the railways in the south, they are doing now refurbishing. They'll have to put in another line in time to come and so on. We can't do this overnight. In the north and the east, India has also stepped in. A new railway line is going to come in, and there are so many things. So I think the infrastructure-wise, you know, they have done. In regard to national reconciliation. This is not something that can come overnight. You see the South African example. With all their reconciliation commissions and so on, even now, there are still gaps here and there that they are trying to fill. Because we are dealing with people, and a generation of people have certain thoughts in their minds. New generations will come without those thoughts, and I think we have to create a relationship. There has to be political will to make this country a place for everybody to share.
So Sri Lanka has just welcomed its 750,000th tourist. Our tourism prospects seem to be good, and also we seem to report that there's a higher day spend by tourists, so the higher value coming in. Now, are you as upbeat as the authorities and some in the industry? Are you as upbeat as they are?
If you ask me personally, I am not altogether sort of enamored by the situation we have achieved now. One thing, being one of the sort of pioneers in the industry, but I have realized we didn't do it correctly from the very beginning. What I find even now that we are doing is to just say, look, we want tourism. We set a target of 50,000 tourists or 2016, or, and 50,000 rooms, and we want 2 million tourists, that kind of target. And they will say, now go and build and get on with it. I don't think that's the way to go. I think, countries like Bali, Fiji, Dominican Republic and so on, government should identify which areas are good for which type of tourism. We have got a lot of tourism plans, all catering for the mass tourists. We haven't really touched the upmarket level. So if we are going, I think to build up, maybe we have to do that. But the moment we get on beyond the 750,000 million mark, we should be looking for choice customers to come in. Otherwise, reported, what I get in reports now, although we are having 750 tourists and prices have gone up, not all of them are upmarket tourists.
So from what you say, Professor, what about our tourism offering and product? How does it compare with the other comparative destinations like Vietnam, for instance?
Vietnam is a very good example of where state has organized and state has determined where exactly tourism is going to be. And then they made sure that not only necessarily in hotels, but for example, how do we take our ancient cities, how do we develop them and so on. Don't let the shanty towns pop up. See, that happened in Ekadua. And my fear that will happen in Bentota Berul as well. So if you ask me how do we stack up, we don't look very well, because the amount of money that we are getting as a yield is not what we should be getting for the product. The product is $1 million, rare product, Sri Lanka tourism product. But we are not selling it well. We are not placing it, we are not packaging it well, we are not placing it well. I think there should be more planning, more methodology, and more sort of focused to go into this. Not just treat it as, let's get something out of this.
We may have a wonderful product, Professor, and we don't disagree with you on that. But why can't we brand our Sri Lanka tourism product and the nation for one, this wonderful product that we are talking about? We have been bumbling and bungling about it for so long. And also, is this the right time to brand it? For instance, with that sort of Damocles of human rights abuses hanging over our heads in the international arena.
Actually, this is not the best time for branding, because if we put in a lot of effort and money into that, it will go waste for the simple reason there are so many negative factors that will just outdrive that. So I don't think that is timing wise. But on the other hand, to answer the question, we should be branding. We should be branding, properly. And that you remember we tried this, but you saw the sort of very amateurish attention that they gave it to us, and they went forward and they came backwards and all that, and we looked very poorly in the world. So we should go to professionals. We should get it right this time. If you ask me personally, I think one of the best brand names that we can have is Ceylon. It is still selling. People still know us. Even 3 generations later, people are still remembering Ceylon tea, right? The name Ceylon, and they know where Ceylon is. So we can keep the name Sri Lanka, as for example the Russians, the Japanese and so on. Their country now, say Deutschland is the name in Germany for Germany, but Germany is the brand name, and I don't know why we are losing it. Because it will be a tremendous value. It sounds very well, it's very easy, and people know where it is. And like other countries, Fiji, 4 letters, Bali, 4 letters, you see Cuba, 4 letters. You know how simple it is, and I think that's what we should be doing.
Well, according to MasterCard's Index of Global Destination Cities for 2011, in the Asia Pacific, there are 12 cities out of the top 20. Now, is this the way things are going? Is Asia Pacific going to dominate tourism? And how is Sri Lanka going to benefit, and where do we stand?
In the Asia Pacific, you can see that the main players today are China and India. And you can also, in those countries that you mentioned, Shanghai and Beijing, the places like that, which 15, 20 years ago, they were nowhere in the radar. But now they are in the limelight, right? And Southeast Asia is the theater of action for the next 10, 20 years. So we have a distinct opportunity here to make. The only thing is we haven't built our what shall I say, the infrastructure ready yet to be able to take over. Now we were going to be a hub, you remember? And I don't think we have achieved anywhere, but we can. For example, now Singapore have made it a health center. You see, Malaysia is making it an education center. So is Dubai. I think those are the areas I think we should go all out. And it's about time we put a stop to this and say, can the private sector have a medical, medical faculty or not? And also, to me, it's a waste of time arguing. Surely the answer is just we got to get on with it, because there should be 10 more of those coming in. And when they do, we don't have the need for the public sector to carry on with this thing. Because if you take, for example, if we are sincerely, seriously dedicated to going for the market economy, and the private sector is going to be the sort of in the driving seat, the engine of growth, then I think we must say, look, that's the way to go. What's happening is we are, sort of, this is holding us back.
That was Deshmanya Professor M.T.A. Furkan. The Voice of Business is up next. But first, some messages from our sponsors.